forgotten corner in the grounds of Lurgan College is maybe the last place that you would expect to find plant succession in operation. But if we look carefully enough, we can see just that occurring. If you look down at the ground here, you can see some moss growing. That moss is growing on top of the tarmac. These are the colonising plants, the very, very first stage in plant succession. These are the plants that can grow on very inhospitable surfaces like bare soil, or indeed in this case concrete. If we have a wee look over here, we have a particularly successful piece of moss that is growing in this location. Let's have a look at it. Now here it is, the little bit of moss that's colonised. But crucially, wait till you see what happens. If we turn this underneath, we'll see that moss has done something quite incredible. What you're looking at there, of course, is some very, very early examples of soil. You can see here, I'll bring it over into a wee bit more light. You can see the stones that have been worn off the tarmac. You can see little bits of organic matter and the brownness of the soil. Now this is crucial to what happens during plant succession. It's very important to understand. Because whenever this colonizer arrives, it begins to change the very environment in which it is found. It starts to release some chemicals which will wear down the rock or the tarmac, in this case it is on. You can see the little bits of stones in there. It'll also contribute some organic matter which will die and become the humus to form the soil. And basically you've got your ingredients for soil there. Soil is organic matter mixed with some minerals, throw in some air and some water, and that's some soil. And this plant is beginning to make soil where no soil existed. It really is quite incredible. And if you have a look at it sideways, you'll see just how much soil has been created in that. It really is a remarkable achievement. But this story is quite a sad story, because the story of Mr. Moss here, this incredible pioneering plant that was able to come in and grow where no plants could grow, and to create the soil from nothing. Unfortunately, this very soil that this moss creates produces favourable conditions for bigger plants, for grasses to come and to grow. And these grasses will come and muscle out of the way Mr. Moss. They will put the roots in, and they will grow up taller than him, and they will block the sunlight out from reaching him, and Mr. Moss will sadly die off. And that is the way of plant succession, that plants in a previous cereal stage will create the conditions, will improve the environment, improve the soil, creating conditions more favourable for the next plants to come along, who will come along and then take over. But they in turn will improve the soil conditions. But there is some kind of sense of poetic justice for Mr. Moss, because those second plants themselves improve the conditions so that other plants come along and take over, and they themselves are muscled out of the way. The next plants improve the soil, and they in turn are replaced, and so on and so on. You get this constant improvement and replacement, improvement and replacement, improvement and replacement, until the whole thing is in balance with the environment. And that process of improvement stops, the process of change in vegetation stops, and the vegetation reaches a balance. It's known as a climatic climax. It's in balance with its environment, and the process of plant succession stops. But what you're looking at here is the very, very first stage, and crucially showing the improvement in the environment, the creation of the soil by the humble moss. Now here's some more moss, this time found in the minibus compound. And we can see exactly that process beginning to take place, because there is the moss doing all of that work of creating that new soil environment, and look what's beginning to grow. We have another plant that has begun to invade. Look at the nature of that plant. It's bigger, it's taller, and as that spreads out, it'll block the sunlight from the moss, and it will take over, and it will grow instead of the moss, and it in turn will produce, or will increase the quality of the soil, and plant succession will move on to another cereal stage. And here's that process shown in diagrammatic form. So you start off with your exposed rocks, and you get your mosses and your lichens growing in them. The lichens are those kind of yellowy very, very low plants you can see growing on rocks sometimes. They create the conditions, as we've just seen, for grasses and weeds to grow, which in turn create the conditions for herbaceous plants, which in turn create the conditions for shrubs, which in turn create the conditions for young forest, which in turn produces the mature forest, which will grow and grow and grow until you reach the climatic climax vegetation. Now this is shown in a line here, but remember this is a temporal process. This is change over time on a particular site, not change over space. Given enough time, the soil improves, the environment improves, and plant succession will occur.